Good evening, everyone. I hope that your week has been going well, and I hope that you have not had too much trouble with the snow and ice this week. We look forward to seeing everyone all together again in person on this Sunday. But in the meantime, we're going to continue the Wednesday night series that we began a few weeks ago called What Moses Preached. Our text for this evening will be Deuteronomy chapter 7. But before we get to that, I want to put a picture up here on the screen and show it to you now. Maybe some of you remember this kind of a scene happening on the playground or at recess or during PE whenever you were a kid. This is whenever you sit down and people start to pick their teams. I know that picture was a little blurry, but for many of you, it probably didn't matter. If you were the kind of person who got picked first, then this probably brought up great memories for you. But if you were like me, and you were one of the people who was often picked last, then this could have been a really hard picture for you to see. If you were that kind of a person, you probably remember the dread of wondering, oh no, am I going to be last again? I want to show you another picture of someone who felt that way, but it will probably surprise you when you see it. This is Nikola Jokic. He's a three-time MVP and NBA basketball champion, but he was afraid during the 2023 All-Star game that he was about to be selected last. So he got up and went to go sit with the team that he believed had picked him last. And when he turned around, he saw that there was still one player who had not been selected. Of course, this was terribly embarrassing and he apologized, but it just goes to show how nerve-wracking the idea of being picked last can be. Tonight, we're going to look at Deuteronomy chapter 7, and we're going to see how God explains through Moses to the people of Israel that he came about selecting them, choosing them to be his people, and for him to choose to be their God. And it's not quite what we would expect. We'll start reading in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. Moses tells the people, "For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his people, his treasured possession. The Lord did not set his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other peoples, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors that he brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the land of slavery, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. But those who hate him, he will repay to their face by destruction. He will not be slow to repay to their face those who hate him. Therefore, take care to follow the commands, decrees, and laws I give you today." As the children of Israel prepare to enter the promised land, Moses reminds them one more time why it was that they were chosen by God. And before they can get a big head, or before they can begin to think that they were actually so incredible or great, Moses reminds them that they were not chosen for the reasons that they may think. It's not because your numbers were so plentiful, Moses tells them. It's not as if there were so many of you that God couldn't help but choose you, like you were the obvious selection because there were so many of you that nothing could possibly go wrong. And it wasn't because you were powerful either. Moses reminds them that it was by God's power that they were delivered from Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. If they had been powerful to begin with, there would have been no need for God to come to their aid. So this again is not the reason that they were chosen by God. Now, if you're like me, your playground self is starting to wonder, well, then why was Israel chosen? Why would God pick them if they weren't powerful, if they weren't plentiful? Wouldn't he want to start with someone else? No. The criteria that God gives here for selecting the Israelites are clear. And it's not what we would expect, but it's telling of God and his character. And he wants the Israelites to know it as they begin to enter the land that God had promised to their ancestors. The first reason that Moses tells the Israelites they were chosen by God is the hardest for us to put our finger on because there's no explicable reason for it. It's because God loved them. This isn't gone over in much depth here, but God's love for his people, for these people, Israel, is first and foremost the reason that Moses gives for why they were selected. It's simple. God loves you, Moses tells them. The second reason that God has chosen Israel is just as simple and yet just as significant as well. It's because God promised. He promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that he would bring their descendants back into the promised land. That's why God brought them out of slavery in Egypt. Yes, he loved them. Secondly, he made a promise, and it was God's intention to keep it. The final reason that you were chosen, Moses tells them, is so that God could prove himself faithful through you. You see, faithfulness isn't something that can be proven in an instant. It's not as if you can just say, I love and I promise, and it's over just like that. These are things that take time. I have loved you for generations, God tells them. This promise was made hundreds of years ago. And yet now, in my choosing you, in my fulfilling of my promise, and my love's obvious display, I make myself to be faithful. God shows his faithfulness most clearly in having chosen this people, Israel, because he's loved them and he's kept his promise. And these things are sure and true marks of God and God alone's faithfulness for his people. Knowing that this is why God chose the Israelites can help us in at least a couple of different ways. First of all, whenever we think about God choosing the Israelites, sometimes it can be confusing because we think, why would he only choose one people? What about all of the other people that we read about in the Old Testament? But God didn't choose them for any kind of selfish reason. It was because of his love that he made a promise and proved himself faithful in their lives. But this isn't the only promise that God made in the Old Testament. When he promised Abraham that through his descendants all people on the earth would be blessed, we see that come into the picture here as well, because God doesn't just love the Israelites. He loves all people. Of course, this is true for us too. Whenever we think about the way that God chose the Israelites, we're comforted. Because let's be honest, I may not be the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, the most powerful, the hardest worker. I may not be the most worthy or have the most resources at my disposal. All the things that can help us get chosen first on the playground. And yet, God promises that he is choosing us as well. And he does this through his son, Jesus. Paul tells the Ephesians that God has chosen us. Whenever we have heard the message of Jesus, God has proclaimed his love for us through his Son. When we have received the gospel of Jesus Christ, it comes with a promise that if we would believe and put our hope and our trust in him, that we would have everlasting life. And in our lives today, God is proven faithful because of the ways that he has provided and cared for us. His love is made known, and we can trust his promises. This week, I hope that you would remember that God has chosen you, not because of how incredible you are, although I know many of you are, but because of his love and his promise and his faithfulness to all of us. And it's not that he's chosen you and left out other people. He wants them to be a part of his promise as well. This is our responsibility, to share the good news of Jesus with others so that they can know about God's love, God's promise, and God's ability to keep it, his faithfulness. I pray that this week you'll be empowered to share that message with someone else. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you again on Sunday.